Well, hello my friends. Welcome back. Remember this? Yep. Michael's house. We're back in the days of Michael's wedding. And I'm taking you guys for an adventure today. We got some plans later today, so I decided to go out and do some sightseeing, and I wanted to give you a little something for the future. Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now. My buddy! Right now we're traveling to Hempstead, which is like the main village, main town. It's kind of where you get anything that you need, kind of close to Hablingbo. So I'm going to the electronics store to get another memory card. Just kind of explore the city and see what that is on the way back, the Anje. Who would have guessed there'd be a church here, huh? Well, we've made it to the electronics store, and this town really kind of reminds me, I mean, even Sweden as a whole reminds me of my grandfather's town, because they don't really, as far as Michael said, they don't lock their doors here. They don't lock their house doors, they don't lock their car doors, and they never have any problems. Although, you know, Sweden has been neutral and has not been in wartime in like over 200 years. However, because of Putin, they had recently reenacted their military. Michael served in the military, but Norpon was telling me he only served for 2 weeks because they ended up getting rid of the program that he was signed on to. And what he said was they just had no problems. They would help out, you know, if asked or whatever, but they've never really had any issues in 200 years. So they shut down all the military bases on the island, and I'm actually going to drive past a couple, hopefully while I'm here, and show you like what used to be the general's house is now a kindergarten. And but Michael told me, he said, because of kind of the threats of Putin, they have started up another military operation over here for training. It's like 20,000 soldiers, 2,000 of which being US troops. And he said they have like 2 tanks on the island for drills, but the people that operate them don't live on the island. They have to be flown here to do it. Well, unfortunately, I couldn't get a video memory card here because all the ones they had were too slow. This is more of like an appliance store. They did have a few, but they were about a third or half the speed of what I normally use, and the ones I use generally are a little too slow even for me, so I don't think it was worth the money. I'm gonna try and get when we go to Visby later. Alright, let's hit this little historical turnoff that I saw up here and see what that is. You can always kind of tell you're in the right spot when you find one of these kind of roads. This is usually where the historical landmarks are. So it looks like this is an old farm settlement. Actually, Michael had told me there's quite a few out here that are still preserved, and some of the original buildings that were here still here, and you can kind of see how what they had to deal with, or what they were able to use in order to farm back then. And you can see right here some of the tools and the methods. So let's look around and see what we can find, if there's anything interesting to see here. Nothing is in English, but he said most of the things that you see that are turnoffs, they're going to be Viking graves or old farms, because that's pretty much what we got here. And you know what? I'll tell you this much. I don't mind, because that ain't what we got where I live. I like seeing this stuff. Old farmhouse here. He also told me, he said, if you're out wandering around and you ever get to parts where you see piles of rocks and things like that, it's one of 2 things. He said if there's any kind of organized fashion to them, it's usually a Viking grave or a farmer's grave of some sort. Or he said if it's all like in a big mound, generally it would be, oh look, there's a fire pit. I don't know. Without being able to read Swedish, there's not a whole lot to see so far, other than just an old farm settlement. That's all right. We're going to another thing right after this, and what that is yeah, I really need somebody to explain what's going on out here. Oh well, you guys can see what I have to go through when I'm trying to find these things. We're gonna go out to kind of out near where the yellow hen was, where Lena works, and there's apparently a the biggest cairn, which is like a tomb, like a big burial mound. We're gonna see the biggest one in Gotland, and supposedly it was for Viking graves, but there's a legend that there was a female giant that lived in the area that's buried there as well. More mushrooms. Well, sorry guys, that was a bit of a letdown. I couldn't really find out much. I think this stop was just to show you certain types of plants and how they used to farm, because see, then they're mentioning the mushrooms, so definitely a farmland. Okay, so we basically started right here in Hablingbo, and I came up to the church, drove up here, and then I turned left, so we're kind of like right here where those fields are, but I want to work my way all the way over to, this is where Lena and I met up, but I want to go over here to this place, Ugarde. That's, I'm gonna see if I have enough time to try and hit that now. One of the things that Norpon was telling me, which is pretty interesting, he said that by law, the king owns all the land in Sweden. So, if at any time the king decided to come and seize your land or take all your trees, he could do that under the guise that they need to build ships for wartime or anything else. Which I guess is an unspoken rule about the United States as well. I mean, we pretty much do the same thing, I think. Or at least have in the past. Proudly waving the Gotland flag. That's the sign we were looking for. Dirt road heaven out here. Some of these houses are just older than Adam, man. Well, by golly, I made it. Let's go see what this is all about. Now, you know, a lot of these, I don't know anything about them. Like, even to turn off, like, we'll be driving down the road and I'll go, hey, Michael. And that goes for both Michaels. I'll be like, hey, what is that? And they'll go, oh, that's like, that's a spinnery, or that's something that you don't want to see that. But I asked Lena when we drove by this sign the other day, and she said, oh, that's worth seeing, so let's check it out. See right there, that's what we're kind of coming to see. It's supposedly the biggest burial mound in all of the island. And you can see here they were doing a traditional Swedish or Viking ritual. And you can see they've got the body here, and they're carrying, and they've got the torches and the cremation stacks. And I had said to Michael, I said, you know what's weird? I noticed at a lot of the churches, there don't seem to be a ton of people buried there. He said, well, a lot of people want to be buried in Stockholm at the same cemetery that Garbo is buried in, that I might go to when I go to Stockholm. However, they said that cemetery is so big that it actually has multiple bus stops, so you can't walk it. They're like, don't go unless you have a map of exactly where she's at. But he said they also, on this island, like to be cremated. And so this is part of that ceremony. And we have a guest book. I'm gonna fill that out on the way out. So it's over here, and so what I was able to find out before I came was that a lot of these early settlements, how they were able to figure out what they were, or that they were a farm or whatnot, is some of the foundations were actually buried underneath these mounds. Some of the towers that they had taken down, or things they had used, and this was actually dating back all the way to the Bronze Age. And the Bronze Age said that that they had that's when they started using horses with spoked wheels as wheelbarrows and things like that to do some of their farming. So they were able to find remnants and evidence of that back here. And it seems like they've kept it pretty much intact. You absolutely can tell that these are part of settlements, and that actually would have been an old farming device. You can tell on both sides it would have what we would refer to kind of as a steamroller type object. And here's some evidence of one of the mounds as well. You gotta love that Sweden appreciates its history. And it's also kind of fascinating, you know, I'm always blown away in Hollywood of just seeing like buildings or things that have been there for 100 years or maybe even a little bit longer, but we're talking out here, we're talking 1100, you know, AD, BC. We're talking, you know, Bronze Age. And there it is. That's what we came to see way out in there. Not these specifically, actually, the one straight ahead. We're actually on that same path of the illustration that I showed you right before we started. This is that pathway all the way over to that mound. Look, there's a smaller one. Then they put these little markers there to let you know that that's what you're looking for. Or that something was referenced in one case on the preliminary map that we saw. There it is. This is, like I told you guys, the largest one they found on the island. So imagine how many towers are under here, as well as how many bodies were cremated here. Pretty incredible, huh? And this is the way that we came in. Bronze Age civilization. That definitely looks like grave. And there's a marker. And here you can see where it says the road leading to Ugard Rohar and the other great cairns on the coastal heath is lined with the remains of stone walls. From early Iron Age onward, drovers' paths were like this were constructed to guide the cattle from the steading out the pasture. The stone walls kept the animals clear of valuable land. And that's absolutely true, because one of the things Michael told me is he said he used to have to walk to school and it took him like a half an hour, but it was only a few kilometers, or not even kilometers. He said it should have only been a few minutes, but he said that all the roads out here are really like curvy, like that. And I said, why is that? And he said, because the farmers let the cattle create the paths that would become the roads, and they just never fixed them. So there's no straight lines to go anywhere. And I'm still mind blown by this. Look at that. I don't know what year that would have been. It looks like metal, like stone wrapped in metal, so I have a hard time believing that it would have been an original Bronze Age, but these are definitely pillars. No question. Absolutely no question. Look at that. And there's even a farm on this land, you can see. Well, that was totally worth it for me. I love history and I love seeing that kind of stuff. One of my dreams, even since I was like in 6th grade, I got obsessed with the whole idea of King Tut and Howard Carter doing the explorations, and I've always wanted to see Egyptian ruins and tombs and stuff, so this fits right in with that. Hopefully someday I'll get there and I'll get to do some real ancient Egyptian vlogs. That would be great. Ancient Roman, Greek. I love mythology. And there are all those stone walls for the livestock. You can see exactly what I was just talking about while we were there. I'm trying to not make Michael stress out, because he was nice enough to let me use this car, even though everybody has come into town now and is needing to go somewhere. So I'm trying to find a shortcut, and I think this map just gave me a shortcut. Wow, I'm sure glad that I came by here. Look at that. That is awesome. Right there in the front yard, a boat. Wow. If you hear all that clanging, it's because Michael has some stuff in the back of this car. I don't know what it is, but by golly, I think my shortcut for the first time in my life with my terrible sense of direction was actually successful. I think this is gonna drop me off exactly where I needed to be. Cut out about 10 minutes out of my trip. All right, I see the road. Success! All right, we're going into the town that I showed you guys the grocery store that day with the crazy cigarette packs. This is that little tiny town. And here's that little grocery that I was at that day. There's the flower shop. There's a mile marker. See how windy and crazy these roads are? These are the roads he was talking about, how they were formed by the cattle. And if this were anywhere else, I would not be driving and filming like this, but since there's never anybody out on these roads, maybe one person every 5 minutes, especially out here, Michael lives in the sticks. Swedish flag. Now what they said they're gonna do is they're gonna have the Swedish flag flying like this in all its glory in Michael's yard. And then next door, in Carolyn's yard, they're gonna have the United States flag because Christina's from the United States and Michael is a proud citizen now as well. Well, he has his green card anyway. I have never told you guys this story, but one of the things that I admire the most about Michael is that when I met him, we were in music school, and Michael loved the United States so much that after a year in music school, when our program was ended, he said, well, I want to stay. So I said, oh, does that mean you're gonna like look for a wife or something? He goes, no, I'm gonna enroll in college in whatever field it is that can most likely get me a green card. And he did the research and found out that accounting was a profession that he could get into. He was good with numbers, and that would enable him to eventually someday get a green card. So that's what he did. He went through all of the university and then put in many years of 7 days a week work as a lackey accountant, and finally had kind of the American dream, which was one of the companies that he was assigned to work for at that time when he was making a very small paycheck as like almost like an entry-level accountant. The company that he was assigned to work for all of a sudden one day offered him a job that paid him quadruple what he was making and was going to make him the CEO. And that's what he did. And since then he's been at a couple different companies and done better and better at every one. Truly the American dream.